to escape the hustle of urban life as we follow Lily Gardner's journey from Chicago to a charming country inn where she finds unexpected healing, love, and self-discovery with Rowan Blake, a reserved horse farmer with a guarded heart. Will their worlds collide or connect? Before we begin this story, comment below where you're watching from. The morning sun streamed through the blinds of Lily Gardner's small apartment in Chicago. The 26-year-old stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back at her. Dark circles underlined her once bright eyes, and her normally vibrant blonde hair hung lifelessly around her shoulders. "Enough," Lily muttered, splashing cold water on her face. The past month had been brutal. First, the breakup with Marcus, after finding him with her friend Jessica, then the pressure at the advertising firm where she worked 60 hours a week. She needed a break before she completely fell apart. Lily grabbed her phone and called her boss. "Jim, I need some time off," she said firmly. "I'm taking that vacation I've been postponing for 2 years." "But the Henderson account," Jim started to protest. "We'll still be there when I get back," Lily finished. "I'm taking 2 weeks, starting tomorrow." Without waiting for his response, she hung up. Her hands were shaking, but it felt good to finally put herself first. An hour later, Lily found herself booking a stay at a small country inn 3 hours away from the city. The Meadowbrook Inn promised quiet surroundings, home-cooked meals and no Wi-Fi in the rooms. Perfect. The next morning, Lily packed her compact car with a suitcase of casual clothes and headed out of the city. With each mile marker, she felt a little of the weight lift from her shoulders. By the time she pulled into the gravel driveway of the white-painted inn with its wraparound porch, she was actually smiling. "Welcome to Meadowbrook," said Martha, the older woman who owned the inn along with her husband George. "You look like you could use some fresh air and peace." "Is it that obvious?" Lily asked. Martha patted her hand. "Honey, most folks who come here are running from something. The country has a way of helping you find yourself again." After settling into her cozy room, Lily wandered downstairs to the small lobby. A bulletin board near the entrance was covered with local flyers. One in particular caught her eye, a simple handwritten notice: "Horseback riding, beginner-friendly, Sunvale Farm." Memories flooded back of childhood summers at her grandparents' farm, where she'd ridden ponies and felt nothing but joy. When was the last time she'd felt that free? "Sunvale's just down the road," Martha said, noticing Lily's interest. "Rowan Blake runs it. Good man. Keeps to himself mostly, but he's got away with those horses." Lily unpinned the flyer. "Maybe. I'll check it out tomorrow." That night, Lily slept better than she had in months, with the window open and cricket sounds replacing the city's constant noise. The next morning, she borrowed a pair of boots from Martha and drove the short distance to Sunvale Farm. The place wasn't fancy, just a modest farmhouse, a large red barn, and several fenced pastures where horses grazed peacefully. Lily sat in her car for a moment, suddenly nervous. In Chicago, she made high-stakes presentations to rooms full of executives, without batting an eye. Why was she intimidated by a simple farm visit? "You gonna sit there all day or come say hello?" The deep voice startled her. A tall man with broad shoulders stood beside her car window. He wore worn jeans, a faded blue work shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and had the kind of tan that only comes from working outdoors. His dark hair was a little too long, and he had a closely trimmed beard that framed a face with laugh lines around his eyes, though he wasn't smiling now. I saw your flyer," Lily stammered as she got out of the car. "About riding lessons." The man studied her for a moment, taking in her borrowed boots and nervous posture. "I'm Rowan Blake," he said finally, extending a calloused hand. "Welcome to Sunvale." "Lily Gardner," she replied, noticing how her hand disappeared in his firm grip. "I haven't been on a horse since I was a kid. I might be terrible at it." That earned her a small smile that transformed his serious face. "Honesty, that's good. Horses appreciate that." He gestured toward the barn. "Come on, let's find you a gentle one to start with." Lily followed him, trying not to notice how confidently he moved or the width of his shoulders. This wasn't a dating trip. This was about finding herself again, not getting involved with some country horse farmer, no matter how attractive he might be. Inside the barn, The sweet smell of hay and the soft nickering of horses created an atmosphere so different from her city life that Lily felt like she'd stepped into another world. Rowan stopped at a stall where a beautiful chestnut mare watched them curiously. "This is Buttercup," Rowan said, reaching up to stroke the horse's neck. "She's patient with beginners." "She's beautiful," Lily said, tentatively reaching out her hand. The horse gently nudged her palm with its soft muzzle. "She likes you," Rowan observed. "That's a good sign." For the next hour, Rowan taught Lily the basics: how to saddle a horse, how to mount properly, how to hold the reins. His teaching style was straightforward and patient. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his instructions were clear. "Back, straight, heels down," he reminded her as they walked slowly around the training ring. Rowan led Buttercup on a long lead rope, staying close while giving Lily the feeling of controlling the horse herself. "How am I doing?" Lily asked after they'd completed several rounds. "Better than most city folks on their first try," Rowan replied with that small smile again. "You're not afraid, and that helps." "Oh, I'm definitely afraid," Lily admitted with a laugh. "I just don't let it stop me." Something flickered in Rowan's eyes, respect perhaps. That's the best kind of courage. After the lesson, Rowan helped her dismount. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked casually, as he led Buttercup back toward the barn. "I'd like that," Lily said, surprised at how much she meant it. "I just want to ride one. Just once more, at least." Rowan leaned against the stall door, his expression softening. "You can ride the horse, but be careful, you might ride into my heart too." Lily blushed, certain he was teasing her. She laughed awkwardly. "I'm just here for a couple of weeks, just a city girl taking a break." "And I'm just a farmer with some horses," Rowan replied with a shrug. "See you tomorrow, Lily Gardner." Back at the inn, Martha raised an eyebrow when Lily mentioned she'd be returning to Sunvale the next day. "Rowan Blake doesn't usually take to strangers," Martha commented as she poured Lily a cup of coffee. "Must have seen something special in you." "He's just being nice," Lily insisted, trying to ignore the warm feeling spreading through her chest. Over the next few days, Lily fell into a rhythm that felt nothing like her frantic city life. Mornings at Sunvale, learning to ride with growing confidence. Afternoons reading on the inn's porch or walking through the nearby woods. Evenings eating Martha's home, cooking and going to bed early, window open to let in the night sounds, and then there was Rowan. He remained quiet and somewhat reserved, but Lily began to notice the little things. How he always had the coffee she liked waiting when she arrived, how his eyes crinkled when she made progress with her riding, how he seemed to find reasons to adjust her posture, or help her dismount that required his hands to touch her shoulders or waist. On her 5th visit, Lily arrived with fresh muffins from the inn. "Martha sent these," she fibbed, though she'd actually asked the innkeeper to bake them specifically for Rowan. "You didn't have to do that," Rowan said, but he looked pleased. "I thought maybe I could help around the farm today," Lily suggested. "You know, earn my keep a bit." Rowan raised an eyebrow. "City girl wants to get her hands dirty?" "This city girl needs to remember there's more to life than deadlines and office politics," Lily replied honestly. That earned her a real smile. Not the small, reserved one she was used to, but one that lit up his whole face. "Let's see what you've got, Gardner." By the end of the day, Lily had brushed horses, helped clean stalls, and learned all their names. Her designer jeans were filthy, her hair was a mess, and her hands were blistered, but she felt more alive than she had in years. As the sun began to set, turning the sky a brilliant orange, Rowan walked her to her car. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked, as he had every day. But this time he stood a little closer, looked at her a little longer. "I'd like that," Lily said softly. That night, as Lily got ready for bed, her phone buzzed with messages from Chicago, from Jim about the Henderson account, from her friend Tara asking if she'd gotten over Marcus yet, from her mother wondering why she was hiding in the country. She turned off her phone without answering any of them. For the first time in years, Lily Gardner was following her heart instead of her calendar, and her heart was leading her straight back to Sunvale Farm, to Rowan Blake, the quiet farmer with kind eyes, who was slowly teaching her to trust again. Both horses and maybe, just maybe, men. What she didn't know was that Rowan had his own reasons for keeping people at a distance. And as she drifted off to sleep thinking about his smile, Rowan sat on his porch staring at the stars, breaking his #1 rule. Never fall for a guest, especially one with a return ticket to a life a world away from his. The next week passed. In a blur for Lily. Every morning she eagerly drove to Sunvale Farm, where Rowan was always waiting, leaning against the fence post with a thermos of coffee and that slow smile that made her heart skip. Her riding improved steadily. By the end of the week, she was trotting confidently around the paddock without Rowan holding the lead rope, and he'd even suggested they try a short trail ride soon. "You're a natural," he told her one morning as she successfully guided Buttercup through a series of simple turns. "Most city folks take longer to get comfortable. I had a good teacher," Lily replied, enjoying the way his eyes crinkled at the compliment. After her riding lesson that day, instead of heading back to the inn, Lily stayed to help Rowan with farm chores. It was becoming their routine, working side by side, talking about everything and nothing. She learned he'd inherited the farm from his grandfather, that he'd gone to agricultural college before coming home to run Sunvale, and that he offered riding lessons more because he enjoyed sharing his love of horses than for the money. What he didn't talk about was his past relationships, and Lily didn't push. She was still nursing her own wounds from Marcus's betrayal and wasn't looking for complications. As they brushed down Buttercup together, their hands occasionally touching, Rowan asked, "What about you? What's waiting for you back in Chicago?" Lily's brush paused mid-stroke. "A job in advertising that consumes my life, an apartment that costs too much, friends who think success means how many late nights you work or how many cocktail parties you attend." "No special someone?" Rowan asked casually, not meeting her eyes. "There was," Lily admitted, "until I found him with my friend. That's part of why I needed this break, to remember who I am without all the noise." Rowan nodded, his face unreadable. "The country's good for that, helps clear your head." That evening, as Lily was preparing to leave, Rowan surprised her by asking, "Do you like music?" "Of course," she replied, curious. "There's an old radio in the barn. Sometimes in the evenings I tune it to a country station and just listen while I finish up. Nothing fancy, but—" He shrugged. "You could stay if you wanted." His invitation was so casually offered that Lily almost missed the hint of vulnerability in his eyes. This was more than a simple request to hang around the farm. "I'd like that," she said softly. That night, in the glow of a single barn light with old country songs playing on a battered radio, Lily sat on a hay bale and watched Rowan work. The music was nothing like the trendy songs that played in Chicago's clubs, but there was something honest about the simple melodies and straightforward lyrics about love and loss. When Rowan finally finished his chores, he sat beside her, offering a bottle of water. "Not exactly fine wine," he joked. "It's perfect," Lily said and meant it. The simplicity of the moment, just sitting in comfortable silence with this man who seemed to understand her need for peace, was more rewarding than any fancy restaurant date she'd ever had. As a slow song came on the radio, Rowan stood and held out his hand. "Dance with me." Lily laughed nervously. "Here? In the barn?" "Best dance floor in the county," he said with a smile that made her heart flutter. She took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. His arms encircled her waist, strong and steady, as they swayed to the music. Lily rested her head against his chest, hearing the strong beat of his heart beneath his shirt. They barely moved, just a slow turning in place, dust motes dancing, in the single beam of light that illuminated them. It wasn't a passionate embrace, but somehow it was more intimate than anything Lily had experienced before. Here, with this man she barely knew, she felt completely safe and completely herself. When the song ended, Rowan didn't immediately let her go. His hands stayed at her waist, and when she looked up, his eyes were dark with an emotion she couldn't quite name. "Lily," he said softly, just her name, nothing more. She found herself rising on tiptoe, drawn to him like a magnet. His head lowered, and for a breathless moment she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he pressed his forehead gently against hers, their breath mingling. "It's getting late," he murmured. "I should let you get back to the inn." Lily nodded, not trusting her voice. As they walked to her car, his hand found hers, fingers intertwining naturally, as if they'd been doing this for years instead of minutes. "Tomorrow?" he asked, as he always did when they parted. "Tomorrow," she confirmed. That night, Lily lay awake in her room at the inn, replaying every moment of the evening. What was she doing? She had a life waiting in Chicago, a career she'd worked hard to build. This wasn't some romance novel where the city girl falls for the country boy and they live happily ever after. Real life was more complicated than that. But when she finally drifted off to sleep, it was Rowan's face she saw, Rowan's hands she felt, Rowan's voice that followed her into her dreams. The next morning, Lily awoke to the sound of rain pounding against her window. The perfect day to stay in bed with a book, but all she could think about was whether Rowan would expect her in this weather. She was halfway to her car, umbrella in hand, when Martha called out from the porch. "Lily, you've got a visitor." Standing under the inn's covered entrance was Rowan, his dark hair damp from the rain, wearing a weatherproof jacket. "I thought maybe you wouldn't want to ride in this weather," he said, looking almost shy. "But I remembered you saying you'd never seen a foal being born. One of my mares is close. Thought you might want to come check on her with me." Martha raised an eyebrow behind Rowan's back, giving Lily a knowing smile that made her blush. "I'd love to," Lily said. The rain created a cozy atmosphere in the barn where they sat watching Daisy, the pregnant mare. Rowan explained what signs to look for, his voice low and soothing. "It could be hours yet," he warned. "Farm life isn't always exciting." "I don't mind," Lily assured him, and she didn't. The sound of rain on the roof, the warm smell of hay, the occasional soft nickering of the horses, it all created a sense of peace she'd never found in Chicago. They talked for hours, moving easily from topic to topic. Rowan told her about his dreams for the farm, how he hoped to expand into therapeutic riding programs for children with disabilities. Lily shared stories of her childhood, her college days, her early struggles in advertising. Night fell, and still Daisy showed no signs of delivering. Rowan hung strings of fairy lights around the barn to give them soft illumination without disturbing the mare. "They're left over from a wedding we hosted here last summer," he explained when Lily admired them. "Only time I've ever dressed the place up." "It's beautiful," she said sincerely, taking in the magical transformation of the simple barn. When Lily shivered slightly in the cooling night air, Rowan disappeared into a small office and returned with a thick flannel blanket. Instead of simply handing it to her, he wrapped it around her shoulders, his hands lingering a moment too long. "Thank you," Lily said, looking up at him. This time, when their eyes met, there was no mistaking his intention. Rowan's hand came up to gently cup her cheek, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he lowered his head and brushed his lips against hers. The kiss was gentle, questioning, and over, almost before it began. But it left Lily breathless. "I've been wanting to do that since you first showed, up in those borrowed boots," Rowan admitted, his voice husky. Before Lily could respond, a noise from Daisy's stall drew their attention. The mare was in active labor. The next few hours were a blur of activity as Rowan coached Daisy through the birth. Lily stayed back, but watched in awe as new life entered the world, a spindly-legged filly with a white star on her forehead. "She's perfect," Lily whispered, as the newborn struggled to stand for the first time. Rowan's arm slipped around her waist, drawing her close to his side. "What should we name her?" The casual "we" wasn't lost on Lily. Something was happening between them, something unexpected and potentially wonderful, but also complicated. "Starlight," Lily suggested, pointing to the white mark. "For the star on her head, and because she was born under these fairy lights." Rowan nodded approvingly. "Starlight it is." It was nearly dawn by the time they left the barn, both exhausted but exhilarated by the night's miracle. In the pale morning light, with the rain finally stopped, Rowan walked Lily to her car. "Stay for breakfast?" he asked, not ready to see her go, but reality was creeping back in. Lily had missed 3 calls from her boss overnight, and her phone was filling with increasingly urgent messages. "I can't," she said reluctantly. "Work emergency, I need to make some calls." Something shuddered in Rowan's eyes. "Right, the real world calls." Rowan, Lily started, but he shook his head. It's okay. I understand. He stepped back, hands in his pockets. Same time tomorrow? For your riding lesson? The formality hurt, after the intimacy they'd shared, but Lily nodded. Of course. Back at the inn, Lily spent hours on her laptop and phone, putting out fires at work. The Henderson account was in crisis, and Jim was not so subtly reminding her that her vacation time was almost up. We need you back, Lily, he insisted. The client is asking for you specifically. I'll be back next week as planned, Lily promised, even as a part of her rebelled at the thought of leaving Sunvale, leaving Rowan. The next few days were bittersweet. Lily still went to the farm every morning, and Rowan was always waiting. But something had changed. There was a new awareness between them, a tension that hadn't been there before. They both knew her time was running out. They still rode together, still talked and laughed. He taught her to canter, his hand steady on her back as she found her balance at the faster gait. She brought him homemade cookies from Martha's kitchen and sat with him while he checked on Starlight and Daisy. But he didn't kiss her again, and she didn't find the courage to make the first move. It was as if they'd reached an unspoken agreement, not to make things harder than they already were. Then, 3 days before she was due to leave, Lily arrived at the farm to find Rowan stringing more fairy lights in the trees behind the barn. What's all this? She asked. Thought we deserved a proper goodbye, he said, not quite meeting her eyes. A real date. Nothing fancy, just dinner under the stars. Tonight, if you're free. Lily's heart both soared and ached. I'd love that. That evening, Lily put more care into her appearance than she had since arriving in the country. She wore a simple sundress borrowed from Martha, who had teared up a little when Lily explained the occasion. That boy's never been serious about anyone since Anna left him 8 years ago, Martha said, as she helped Lily pin up her hair. For him to do this, it means something, honey. I know, Lily said quietly. That's what makes it so hard. When she arrived at Sunvale, Lily found the area behind the barn transformed. Fairy lights twinkled in the trees, and a small table covered with a checkered cloth sat beneath them. Rowan had cleaned up too, trading his work clothes for clean jeans and a button-down shirt that brought out the blue in his eyes. The meal was simple: home-cooked roast chicken, fresh vegetables from his garden, and apple pie that he admitted Martha had helped him make. But it was the most meaningful dinner Lily could remember. As the stars came out overhead, Rowan connected his phone to a small speaker and held out his hand. One more dance. They swayed together under the fairy lights, and stars holding each other close, neither speaking the truths that hung between them. That Lily had a life waiting, that Rowan had been hurt before by someone who'd chosen the city over him, that what they'd found in these 2 short weeks was precious, but possibly impossible. When the song ended, Rowan didn't let go. Instead, he cupped Lily's face in his hands and kissed her. Not the gentle question of before, but a kiss full of longing and things unsaid. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. I told you not to ride into my heart, he whispered, but you did, and now I don't know how to let you go. Lily didn't answer with words. Instead, she pulled Rowan closer and kissed him again, letting her actions speak what her heart wasn't ready to admit. They stayed under the stars for hours, talking, dancing, and sharing soft kisses that felt both like beginnings and endings. When Lily finally drove back to the inn that night, her mind was in turmoil. 2 days. That was all the time she had left before her flight back to Chicago. Back to deadlines and traffic and a life that suddenly seemed hollow compared to what she'd found here. The next morning, Lily's phone rang early. It was Jim, her boss. Lily, we need you back now, he said without preamble. Henderson is threatening to pull their account if we don't have a presentation ready by Monday morning. I know your vacation isn't over until Tuesday, but I understand, Lily said automatically, years of putting work first kicking in. I'll see if I can get an earlier flight. After hanging up, Lily sat on the edge of her bed, a heavy weight settling in her chest. She had responsibilities in Chicago, a career she'd worked hard to build. She couldn't just throw it all away for a man she'd known for less than 2 weeks, could she? With a heavy heart, She called the airline and changed her ticket to that afternoon. Then she packed her bags, trying not to think about the fact that in a few hours she'd be leaving Sunvale and Rowan behind. Martha frowned when Lily explained she had to leave early. "Work emergency," Lily said, not meeting the older woman's eyes. "Life's full of emergencies, honey," Martha replied. "The trick is figuring out which ones are worth dropping everything for." Lily's last drive to Sunvale was the hardest. How would she tell Rowan she was leaving today instead of in 2 days, that their time together had been cut even shorter? She found him in the barn, checking on Starlight and Daisy. The filly had grown stronger in just a few days, and now moved about the stall with growing confidence. "She's getting so big already," Lily said, trying to keep her voice normal. Rowan turned, his face lighting up at the sight of her, but his smile faded quickly when he saw her expression. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I have to go back today," Lily blurted out. "Work emergency. They moved up a big presentation and my boss called and I—" "Today?" Rowan's face shuttered, that familiar mask sliding back into place. "I see. I'm sorry," Lily said, hating how inadequate the words sounded. "I tried to say no, but this account is huge, and they're specifically asking for me and—" "You don't have to explain," Rowan cut her off. "I always knew you were going back. Today or 2 days from now, what's the difference?" But there was a difference. Those 2 days might have given them time to figure things out, to talk about what was happening between them, to make some kind of plan. "I thought maybe we could go for one last ride," Lily suggested, desperate to salvage something of their final day. Rowan nodded stiffly. "Sure, I'll saddle Buttercup for you." Their final ride was nothing like the joyful outings of previous days. They rode in silence, Lily on Buttercup and Rowan on his own horse Thunder, through the fields of Sunvale. The countryside was beautiful, bathed in sunlight, but Lily could hardly see it through the tears she kept blinking back. When they returned to the barn, Rowan helped her dismount without a word. As she stroked Buttercup's neck in a silent goodbye, Lily couldn't stand the tension anymore. "Rowan, please talk to me," she pleaded. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "What do you want me to say, Lily? That these 2 weeks have meant more to me than the past 8 years put together? That watching you leave is tearing me apart inside? That I'm afraid I'm making the same mistake again, falling for someone who'll choose the city over this life? Over me?" "Again?" Lily asked softly. Rowan's shoulders slumped. "Anna. We were engaged. She was from the city too, stayed here one summer helping with the therapeutic riding program I was trying to start. Said she loved the country life, loved me. But when fall came," he shrugged, the casual gesture belied by the pain in his eyes. "She couldn't do it. Said she'd suffocate here, away from everything. So she left. And I made a rule. Never fall. For guests." "But you broke that rule," Lily whispered. "For you," he agreed, finally meeting her eyes. "Only for you." Before she could reach for him, Rowan turned away, taking the reins of both horses. "I need to cool them down." "Your flight's soon, right? You should go." "Rowan, it's better this way," he said firmly, leading the horses away. "Clean break. You go back to your life, I'll go back to mine." "What if I don't want a clean break?" Lily asked, her voice breaking. Rowan paused but didn't turn around. "That's the problem, Lily. We don't always get what we want." With that, he disappeared into the barn, leaving Lily standing alone in the yard, tears streaming down her face. She waited for 10 minutes, hoping he would come back out, give her a proper goodbye. But the barn remained quiet, and time was ticking away. Her flight wouldn't wait. Finally, heartbreaking, Lily got in her car and drove away from Sunvale Farm, for the last time. As the rearview mirror filled with the image of the red barn growing smaller, she let the tears flow freely. Back at the inn, Martha took one look at her face and opened her arms. Lily fell into the older woman's embrace, sobbing, "He wouldn't even say goodbye," she choked out. Martha stroked her hair. "That boy's hurting just like you are. He's just protecting himself the only way he knows how." "I have to go," Lily said, pulling back and wiping her eyes. "My flight, sometimes running back to what's familiar is easier than facing something new and scary," Martha said gently. "But that doesn't mean it's right." Lily had no answer for that. An hour later, she hugged Martha goodbye, promised to keep in touch, and began the drive back to the airport, back to Chicago, back to the life that now felt like someone else's. The flight was a blur. Lily stared out the window as the countryside gave way to suburbs and finally to the glittering skyline of Chicago. By the time she unlocked the door to her apartment, it was late evening. The space felt smaller than she remembered, and strangely empty despite being filled with her things. The next morning, Lily threw herself into work. She arrived at the office before anyone else, pulled up the Henderson files and worked straight through until the presentation Monday morning. Her colleagues praised her dedication. Jim hinted at a possible promotion, but none of it filled the hollowness in her chest. Days passed, then weeks. Lily went through the motions of her city life: work, occasional dinners with friends, even a blind date that Tara insisted would help her move on. But her heart wasn't in any of it. At night, she dreamed of a red barn, fairy lights in trees, and a man with kind eyes who had warned her not to ride into his heart. A month after her return, Lily was sitting in a marketing meeting when her phone buzzed with a text from Martha. "Starlight took her first real run today. Thought you'd want to know." Attached was a photo of the filly, legs stretched out mid-gallop, her coat gleaming in the sunlight. In the background, barely visible, was a tall figure watching from the fence. "Rowan, you okay?" asked the colleague next to her, noticing the tears in Lily's eyes. "Fine," Lily lied, quickly putting her phone away. "Allergies." That night, Lily sat on her apartment balcony staring at the city lights. Chicago had always energized her before. The pace, the opportunities, the constant motion. Now it just felt noisy and cold. She pulled out her phone and looked at the picture of Starlight again. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she texted Martha back. "How is he?" The reply came quickly. "Working too hard, barely sleeps, doesn't talk much. So, about the same as you, I'd guess." Lily's fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could she say? That she missed him? That she thought of him every day? That she'd made a terrible mistake? Before she could decide, another text came through. "He kept your riding gloves. Said you left them in the barn. But I think he just wanted something of yours to hold on to." Something broke inside Lily then. All the emotions she'd been holding at bay for weeks came rushing in. She loved him. She, practical, career-focused Lily Gardner, had fallen deeply in love with a quiet horse farmer in less than 2 weeks. And she'd walked away. The next morning, Lily went straight to Jim's office. "I need to talk to you about my job," she began. 2 hours later, she left with a compromise. She could work remotely 3 weeks out of the month, coming to Chicago for 1 week for in-person meetings and presentations. It wasn't ideal from the company's perspective, but Lily was valuable enough that they were willing to try. Next, she called her landlord about breaking her lease. Then she called Martha. "Is there any chance the Blue Room is available?" she asked without preamble. "I need a place to stay while I look for something more permanent in the area." Martha's delighted laughter warmed Lily's heart. "For you, honey, always." "Don't tell him I'm coming," Lily added quickly. "I need to do this in person." A week of frantic packing and organizing later, Lily boarded a plane back to the place where she'd left her heart. Martha met her at the small regional airport, enfolding her in a motherly hug. "He's going to be so happy," Martha whispered fiercely. "I hope so," Lily said, suddenly nervous. "What if he's moved on? What if he doesn't want me back?" Martha snorted. "That boy's been walking around like half a person since you left. Trust me, he wants you back." The next morning, Lily drove to Sunvale Farm, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. The place looked exactly the same. The modest farmhouse, the red barn, the horses grazing peacefully in their pastures, but something was different, something was missing. It took Lily a moment to realize what it was. The horseback riding beginner-friendly sign was gone from the entrance. She parked her car and walked toward the barn, each step feeling both like coming home and stepping into the unknown. The barn door was open, familiar country music drifting out. And there he was. Rowan, his back to her, brushing Thunder's coat in smooth, gentle strokes. He was thinner than she remembered, the muscles in his arms more defined under his rolled-up Sleeves. His dark hair was a little longer, curling at the nape of his neck. Lily stood frozen, suddenly unsure. What if Martha was wrong? What if he'd moved on, decided he was better off without the complications she brought? As if sensing her presence, Rowan stilled, then slowly turned around. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. The distance between them feeling both vast and non-existent. "Lily," he finally said, her name a prayer on his lips. "I came back," she said simply, finding no better words. Rowan carefully set down the brush, his movements deliberate, controlled. "For how long this time?" "For good," Lily said, taking a step toward him. "If you'll have me." Something flared in his eyes. Hope, wariness, longing. "What about your job? Your life in Chicago?" "I can work remotely most of the time," Lily explained, taking another step closer. "And as for my life," she gestured around the barn, "I think I found it here. With the horses, with you." Rowan's control seemed to break then. In 3 long strides, he crossed the space between them and swept her into his arms, lifting her off her feet in a fierce embrace. When he set her down, his hands came up to cup her face, his eyes searching hers as if he couldn't quite believe she was real. "Are you sure?" he asked roughly. "This life, it's not glamorous. It's early mornings and hard work and being miles from the nearest decent coffee shop." Lily smiled through the tears gathering in her eyes. "I'm sure. I tried to go back to my old life, but my heart stayed here. With you." Rowan's answering smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. He lowered his head and kissed her, a kiss full of longing and reunion and promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Rowan rested his forehead against hers. "Welcome home, Lily Gardner." In that moment, with the smell of hay around, them and country music playing softly in the background, Lily knew she'd made the right choice. She'd ridden into his heart, just as he'd warned her she might, and he'd ridden straight into hers. The city noise that had filled her head for so long was finally blessedly silent, replaced by the sound of horses nickering softly, birds singing in the rafters, and Rowan's heartbeat strong and steady against her ear as he held her close. She was home. 2 months passed in a blur of happiness for Lily and Rowan. She settled into the Blue Room at Martha's Inn while they explored their new relationship, taking things day by day. The remote work arrangement with her advertising firm was going better than expected. She'd converted a small room in Rowan's farmhouse into an office, complete with the high-speed internet connection he'd installed specially for her. On weekdays, Lily would work on her marketing campaigns, and in the evenings and weekends, she'd help around the farm. Her riding had improved so much that Rowan now let her take Buttercup out on the trails alone. The city girl who had arrived in borrowed boots was blossoming into a confident horsewoman. Life wasn't perfect, of course. There were adjustments on both sides. Lily struggled with the isolation sometimes, missing the convenience of city restaurants and the energy of downtown. Rowan had to learn to accommodate another person's rhythms after years of solitude, which wasn't always easy for a man used to his own company. But each challenge they faced together only strengthened their bond. What had begun as a vacation romance was developing into something deep and lasting. One crisp fall morning, as golden leaves drifted down around Sunvale Farm, Lily's phone rang with a call from Chicago. It was Jim. "Lily, we need you back here," he said, his voice tense. "The Henderson account is in trouble again, and the Tokyo opportunity is heating up. This remote arrangement isn't working for these big clients. They want face-to-face meetings." "How long would I need to be there?" Lily asked, a knot forming in her stomach. "That's what I'm calling about," Jim replied. "The partners have been talking. They're prepared to offer you a promotion, senior, creative director, but it would mean being back in Chicago full-time. We can't have our top person working remotely, especially with international clients coming on board." Lily's heart sank. "I need time to think about it." "You've got until Monday," Jim told her. "The Tokyo representatives are flying in next week. This is a career-defining opportunity, Lily. Don't throw it away." After hanging up, Lily sat at her desk, staring out the window at the farm where Rowan was working with a new horse, senior creative director. It was the position she'd been working toward for years, The salary would be nearly double what she currently made. It was everything she'd wanted in her career. But now her heart was here, at Sunvale, with the man who had shown her a different kind of life. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lily told Rowan about the call. "It's an amazing opportunity," she said quietly, "but it would mean moving back to Chicago permanently." Rowan's face remained carefully neutral. "I see. I haven't decided anything yet," Lily added hastily. "I wanted to talk to you first." Rowan took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against her skin. "Lily, I love you. I think I've loved you since that first day when you showed up in those borrowed boots. But I can't ask you to give up your career for me." "You're not asking," Lily pointed out. "They are. It's what you've worked for," Rowan said, his voice strained despite his obvious attempt to stay calm. "I remember how your eyes lit up when you talked about your projects, your clients. I don't want to be the reason you give that up." "But what about us?" Lily asked, tears threatening. "Long distance rarely works." Rowan looked out at his land, the farm that had been in his family for generations. "I can't leave here, Lily. This place isn't just my job, it's my heritage, my responsibility. The therapeutic riding program is finally taking off. I have employees who depend on me, horses, that need me." "I know," Lily whispered. She did know. She'd seen firsthand how Rowan had poured his heart and soul into Sunvale, how he was slowly building something that helped not just the horses, but the community. "So where does that leave us?" she asked after a long silence. Rowan squeezed her hand. "I think you need to go to this meeting, see what they're offering, make the decision that's right for you. Not for me, not for us, for you." "And if I choose Chicago?" Lily couldn't keep the tremor from her voice. Rowan's eyes were suspiciously bright as he answered, "Then I'll love you enough to let you go." The next few days were tense. Lily went through the motions of her work, tried to enjoy her time with Rowan, but the decision loomed over everything. On Sunday, the day before she needed to give Jim her answer, she drove to Martha's Inn for advice. "Oh, honey," Martha said, pouring her a cup of coffee. "No one can make this choice but you." "I love him," Lily said simply. "But is love enough? What if 5 years from now I resent giving up my career? Or what if I take the job and regret losing him every day for the rest of my life?" Martha patted her hand. "You're asking the wrong questions. The real question is, which version of yourself do you want to be? The high-powered executive in Chicago or the woman who's found peace here at Sunvale? Can't I be both?" Lily asked desperately. "Maybe," Martha said thoughtfully, "but not exactly in the way you're thinking." That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, weighing options, making mental lists of pros and cons. By morning, she was exhausted but clear-headed. She called Jim before breakfast. "I've made my decision," she told him firmly. "I'm not coming back full-time." There was a long pause. "Lily, don't throw away everything you've worked for. This promotion—" "I'm not throwing anything away," Lily interrupted. "I'm choosing a different path. I'm good at what I do, Jim, one of the best. But I don't need to be in Chicago to do it. The partners won't agree to—" "Then I'll resign and start my own consulting firm," Lily said, surprising herself with how right the words felt. "I have clients who would follow me. I have ideas for the rural market that no one in Chicago is even thinking about. I can build something here, something that matters." After a lengthy negotiation, Jim reluctantly agreed to take her proposal to the partners. She would work remotely, come to Chicago for quarterly meetings and major client pitches, and focus on developing a new rural markets division. "It's a risk," he warned. "If it doesn't work out—" "Then I'll figure something else out," Lily said confidently. "But it will work. I know it will." She hung up feeling lighter than she had in days. When Rowan came in from morning chores, she was waiting with 2 cups of coffee and a smile. "I'm staying," she told him simply. Rowan froze, hope and wariness battling in his eyes. "What about your promotion?" "I turned it down," Lily explained. "But I didn't give up my career. I'm going to build something new. Here. I'll need to travel. Sometimes. But my home will be Sunvale. If that's still what you want." The smile that broke across Rowan's face was answer enough, but his words sealed it. It's all I've wanted since you rode into my heart." A month later, with the first snow-dusting Sunvale farm, Rowan suggested they take a ride to check on the fence line in the north pasture. "In this weather?" Lily asked, raising an eyebrow. "The fence can't wait until it warms up?" "Trust me," Rowan said with a mysterious smile. "You'll want to see this." Bundled in warm coats, they rode out together, Lily on Buttercup and Rowan on Thunder. The countryside was transformed by snow, peaceful and pristine. When they reached the north pasture, Rowan pointed to a small rise overlooking the valley. "Up there," he said. They dismounted and climbed the gentle slope on foot. At the top, Lily gasped. The view was spectacular. Rolling hills, the distant town, and Sunvale spread out below them. "It's beautiful," she breathed, her words forming little clouds in the cold air. "This is my favorite spot on the whole farm," Rowan said, coming to stand beside her. "I thought it might be a good place for a house, a home." Lily turned to him, her heart quickening. "A home?" Rowan took her hands in his. "Lily Gardner, when you drove up that first day, I told you that you might ride into my heart. I didn't know then how completely you'd claim it. I love you, your determination, your courage, the way you talk to the horses when you think no one's listening." His voice grew husky with emotion. "I can't imagine this farm or my life without you in it." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple but beautiful ring with a diamond that caught the winter sunlight. "It's not fancy like something from the city," he said apologetically, "but my love for you is as solid as this land we're standing on. Will you marry me, Lily? Will you build a life with me here?" Tears of joy froze on Lily's cheeks as she nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Rowan slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that warmed her despite the chill air. "I love you," she finally managed to say when they broke apart. "And yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." They rode back to the farm together, Lily's ring glinting in the winter light, their future stretching before them like the snow-covered fields, full of possibility, fresh and new, yet somehow as familiar as coming home. The next day, a package arrived at Sunvale Farm. Inside were Lily's old riding gloves, worn and softened from her first lessons. Tucked inside was a note in Martha's handwriting. "Knew you'd be needing these again. Some journeys are meant to be forever. Welcome home, honey." Lily smiled, placing the gloves on her dresser beside the picture of her and Rowan that Martha had taken on the day of their engagement. From the window, she could see Rowan in the paddock working with Starlight, who had grown into a beautiful young horse. Beyond him, the red barn stood strong against the winter sky, fairy lights twinkling along its eaves. Rowan's surprise engagement decoration. The city girl who had arrived in borrowed boots had found her true self in this quiet countryside. She had ridden into Rowan's heart, just as he'd warned her she might, and he had galloped straight into hers, changing its rhythm forever. In the distance, she could hear the sound of hoofbeats as the horses ran freely in the pasture. It was the sound of home, the sound of love, the sound of a journey that had only just begun. The end.